I just said it to some of you. We're super excited to have you here. It's the first PlanetScale happy half hour that we're hosting, actually. So a little bit nervous, but really looking forward to spending the next 30 minutes with you. We're obviously going to talk a little bit about PlanetScale, but mostly about Vitess, and also demo, of course, how pscale CLI can be used in a pull request based workflow. So that's the first thing. A couple of things to mention up front. As we said in the invite, we will give you the chance to win swag. So pay attention to that. Make sure that you share your address to send it to either to my email address or via a GitHub issue, which you can use as well. Okay. So over to who are your hosts? Of course, that's me, Lily. I used to work for GitHub. Some of you know me from there. I managed our enterprise customers there and now went on to an exciting new job at PlanetScale. And with me, I have Johannes.
Hi, I'm Johannes. Also joined Lily from GitHub to PlanetScale. I'm super excited that finally something comparable to pull requests also arrived in the database world, which is the main part of today's demo, actually. But before that, what's PlanetScale all about?
Yeah, what is PlanetScale? So we have been founded in 2018. We have about 81 employees now across the world. So we're supporting customers all across the globe these days. The DNA, well, you've heard GitHub already, but there's also a significant part from Google. We'll tell you all about that as well. Then we have a couple of people from Percoda also on this call, Twilio, DigitalOcean, Red Hat, and so on. So this is part of PlanetScale.
So why do we have to create PlanetScale in the first place? As most of you will probably know, relational ACID compliant databases were not originally designed for horizontal scale. So when MySQL came up, it was not meant to run on many, many hosts at the same time. And if you wanted to make it faster, you typically added more CPUs or you added more memory or faster storage to it. And that works for a couple of iterations until you get to a point where just restoring a backup takes forever because you have hundreds of gigabytes or even terabytes of data. And then you start manually sharding by adding additional hosts with different databases and change your application that it talks to multiple hosts, but also that it's not really scalable. Actually, not really scalable to the point that in 2010, the founders of our company were working for YouTube, and YouTube was on fire because it was running on MySQL and it got acquired by Google, and the load was just so immense that all the manual sharding and all the adding CPUs and memory came to a point where, well, it did not really work anymore. So our founders were tasked to develop a system where you can run MySQL in a horizontally sharded, reliant fashion. And this is where Vitess was born.
Yeah, Vitess, the big open source project, back then partitioned on Borg, predecessor of Kubernetes, today Kubernetes, of course, to handle large amounts of data with MySQL. So now, first opportunity for you to win Slack. If you look at the infrastructure slide that Johannes is showing you now, you see that many of those components on there actually start with VT. So you would say, duh, it's like Vitess, of course, but actually the VT goes back to the original project name, like the code name that they had within YouTube for Vitess. So if you've watched the talk by Sugu, our CTO, and also the co-creator of Vitess, that we hinted in the invite as well as on the sign up page, you will probably know what the answer is to that. So what was the original project name of Vitess within YouTube? Anyone knows? And no, Alkin, you cannot answer this time.
Same for this. Tough one, but we give you another 10 seconds, and don't worry, if you don't answer that one, we will include it in any talk going forward until everybody knows the answer. And there's other chances to win some swag. So this time we don't give swag away, but there's another time in this talk also to win swag. Voltron, VT was standing for Voltron, for all the Apple fans out there. And the reason was that Borg, the predecessor of Kubernetes, was pretty early. Vitess running on it, or better, MySQL running on it, was also a super early stage, and all felt a bit like a piece of puzzle together. Nowadays, this has obviously changed. Now it's a rock solid, stable, open source system many large organizations rely on.
Yeah, so that includes GitHub, Stripe, Peak Games, Twitter, Vinted, all of these organizations who actually run like with a significant workload, like petabytes or petabytes of data, and also millions of transactions per second. So over to Johannes to actually give you a bit more insights on our team. And also we will have Q&A at the end, so feel free to like get all your questions together for the end of this.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, technology alone doesn't help you, right? It's about the people who develop that technology and who also have the experience running large MySQL setups in production. So this is just part of the PlanetScale team. It's the founders of the Vitess project, but also many folks from Percona, from Google. We have the folks who ran MySQL at Twitter, or at GitHub in production, at Flipkart, and so on. And because all of those folks have not only known how to run this with hundreds of terabytes in production, they have also noted what kind of productivity issues developers typically have when they work with MySQL. And these are the features we added on top of just hosting Vitess for our customers in our various products. We also added something called database branching on top of it. Because what we figured in many companies when they start using MySQL, developers typically just do changes directly in the production database until they figure out, well, this is very risky, right? You accidentally drop tables, you accidentally remove columns, you do mistakes until you realize, well, developers shouldn't have direct access to the database. So you have a review committee for all the changes. But if you have multiple teams who are making those changes, it's quite difficult to sort them, make sure that there's no conflicts. And then when you apply those changes, there's another surprise. MySQL is actually locking database tables when you make schema changes. And if you have terabytes of data, it can happen that the table stays locked for an entire day. And during that entire day, no single write operation would come through. So what PlanetScale came up with based on Ghost, which was also developed by PlanetScale employees, is a system where you can create a branch similar to Git, where you propose your schema changes, then test those changes in a copy of your database with the new schema changes applied, where you can also connect your application to. Then you create a deploy request that captures all the schema changes done. Other developers can review that. It will also automatically check for any schema conflicts. And the merge is then, when everybody is ready, done asynchronously, meaning a shadow table will be created, data will be copied over there, caught up with the original table. And once everything is migrated properly, there will be a transparent cut over to that new table, so that there's no downtime for your production, even if you have terabytes of data in it. That's the branching. But as I said, the main part of this talk, or of this happy hour today, should be showing this in production, also in a GitHub-based developer workflow. So let's have a look at those database branches first. This is a database called Metrics Demos Jonico. You see there's currently a little bit of load on it. You could even find out from the web UI what kind of queries are running against it and how long those queries take and what is potential for optimization. The difference to other MySQL-based SaaS providers is that we now have this concept of branches. So if we go to a branch, each one can be tested in isolation. There's a concept of so-called deploy requests, and those deploy requests, they contain the changes that are going to be proposed. So in this case, for instance, removing a particular column and a particular key from the production database. Once this has been reviewed, it can be just added to the deploy queue, which is kind of equivalent to clicking merge in GitLab or GitHub pull request just for databases. And this is now done in the background and just core functionality of the PlanetScale workflow. The lightning talk today is about how you can integrate this all into a CI/CD workflow with your code and use a tool for it, which is called PlanetScale CLI. This is our command line interface, just running one single command to show you how it works. In general, you would just, for instance, list all the regions you have, or create any kind of database branch. So anything like this can be done directly from the command line. What we now like to do is to use those scripts in a CI/CD kind of workflow. And for this, we will start over from scratch with a brand new developer plan on PlanetScale, which is completely for free. So your database with 3 developer branches is completely for free. You just click on sign in and then use, for instance, your GitHub account. That's all you have to do. And then you are in your empty database organization. And what we now want to do is create a database there programmatically. So the project we are using for that is called pscale CLI helper scripts. It's also linked in the slides we will share with you. And pscale CLI helper scripts has basically 3 purposes. Purpose number 1, it has ready-made scripts for any kind of CI/CD to automate our CLI tool, to, for instance, wait until pull requests have been successfully merged, or to create credentials, to wait until databases are ready, and so on. And there's customers who use that with GitLab already. Then there is a 0 setup workflow actions included in this repository for GitHub. So if you wanted to just see all the functionalities PlanetScale offers, like database branch creation, merging, you would just after each other run those manual workflows, and it does everything for you without you having to set up anything. And we will actually see that in a moment. And then the majority part of the demo will be to run pscale commands directly out of a GitHub pull request, so that you can really have the same unit of work for your code changes, as well as for the database schema changes that go with it. So without further ado, I'm now creating a copy of this repository, and this is what you could do as well. So it's also showing that there's no additional setup needed other than what I'm doing right now. I'm creating a new repository in the PlanetScale Happy Half Hour repository called Happy Half Hour, and make it public. And this is basically just creating, well, the scripts and also the action workflows, which are part of it in it. So that means if I go to the action step here, I already see the pre-configured action workflows. And I start, well, probably with 0.1, create a database, because at the moment I don't have any database, and that's a good start if you want to show any kind of database based work. So in a couple of seconds, I have a GitHub action run here, which will actually create a PlanetScale database. How does it get my credentials to do so? Well, the pscale CLI also has the ability to do a web-based authentication. I just have to click on the link that is provided in the GitHub action run, and then I can, and then the script can proceed here. It automatically finds out about my org, about the name of the database, about my account, and will now go ahead and create a database for me and wait until the main branch is ready to be promoted to production. This might take a couple of seconds. Reason is that any database branch in PlanetScale is actually a full Vitess cluster with a primary, couple of replicas and different availability zones, automated backup, automated failover, anything Vitess offers you. So it's a full-blown database, and many of you, for your example projects, you can just use the free development tier of PlanetScale for your experiments. I would actually love to learn how this is working out for you. For those of you who wonder why I did authentication via web UI and CI, was just showing you how to, well, have 0 setup instead of creating any GitHub action secrets. If you were using PlanetScale service tokens, then you wouldn't have to go over those steps. It's just the GitHub action secret you have to set, and then it's done. So database branch has been created. It has been successfully promoted. And we are staying here for one more second to point your attention to that link. That link is a one-time link, so I can only retrieve it once, and it shows me how to actually connect to my database branch from any kind of framework I like to use. It was designed in this particular demo as a one-time link, so that if anybody else gets access to the logs, it doesn't matter, right? And the secret is already gone. You have already copied it. So now we have the database, and we could go on with 02, 03, and 04 to add developer branches, merge those schema changes in. So I encourage you to do that when you're testing your own copy of pscale CLI helper scripts. For the purpose of this demo today, we will switch to the pull request-based workflows. So we like to actually develop a new feature. And that feature is again about getting swag. So we would love you, that's why we have this issue template in here. You click on new issue, to provide your own examples, how you're using pscale CLI and those scripts in your environment. So if you have some nice example with Prisma, Hibernate, whatever you're doing, just create an issue, right? With a pull request where you make use of it, tweet about it and mention at PlanetScale data, and you have very, very high chances to win some swag with us. Until now, this issue template is there, but it's not publicly linked to, and we like to change that. And we like to publicly link to it from the README Markdown file. So that's our code change. It's a small code change, but it's one. So I'm just adding one Markdown paragraph in here. This Markdown paragraph is basically saying, make your own examples how to use those scripts and add them to our issue template. Right, so that's the code change we want to do. And this code change will go in its own branch called happy half hour. And I'm just giving some meaning of what this pull request is about, that we link the issue template in our Markdown file. And then we will create a GitHub pull request. So far, it's just code changes or Markdown changes, but I guess you get the idea. Now we will actually create a corresponding database branch that lives with that code change. And we do that by using the so-called pscreate command. So the pscreate command will create a feature branch or database branch in the PlanetScale database. And optionally, you can also have a starting DDL, like creating a table for the swag winners. It's also possible to run this command and provide it a different feature branch name in the PlanetScale database if it shouldn't be the same as the one here, happy half hour. Or you can also decide not to provide any DDL because you want to do all the DDL changes, for instance, from your ORM layer. You see GitHub Action is already looking into it. It looked into anything which starts with pscreate, currently checking whether I have also permissions in this repository to just create feature branches and all of this. And in a couple of seconds, it will tell me what it's actually going to do, creating a database branch happy half hour. I have to authenticate in order to make that work. It's again this web-based sign-on. You could also have any kind of service token if you don't want this manual interaction, but it's also kind of nice approval step, right? So now it's picking up the happy half hour branch, is creating that one. As said, it's a full-blown database with a schema which is quite similar to the original main branch, but this time it also has the DDL changes I suggested as part of the pull request comment. That will again take probably another 20 seconds until this full Vitess clusters up. And those scripts in this repository, they have the built-in logic there to have exponential back off up to a certain point where it doesn't go to 32 seconds, but for instance, 20. You can all fine tune this and use in your own CI/CD environments with whatever fits your particular workflow best. We will, once this workflow run is done, also see that it updates the pull request in question. So let's go back to our pull request. And here you can see database branch and deploy request created successfully. Happy half hours there. We have a deploy request now with the schema changes, which is a swag winners database table we want to add. You also see the DDL statement and what kind of schema changes have been calculated, which would be executed if we merged that one now. Before we merge that database branch in, I would like somebody else to review and approve it. So Lily, could you just go ahead and approve this for me, please?
For sure.
For sure. So the commands which we currently support are, for instance, ps approve. Like there's a couple of more, like you can also do ps update to update additional DDLs or just see what has else been done in the branch. In the meantime, how it differs from the main branch, there's also ps merge and a ps delete command, and you can obviously create your own ones. So Lily's command is already being looked at by actions, and now she will go through a similar authorization process as I do. Was also thinking about creating another comment in here where you can authorize directly by just clicking on it. That would be an option. I guess in most production settings, you won't have this manual approval step though. So now it has been approved. So if I go to the deploy request, I see that Lily just wants you to win all the swag. So Lily, if it's fine with you, then please go ahead and merge that thing from GitHub. Trying out ps merge now. All of those things just showing you while this is running are just scripts in the workflows directory. There is an issue ops ps commands, one which is, for instance, controlling those issue ops parts, and the other scripts are for the manual actions you could run over there. There's also one where you can create a branch, including some starting DDL if you wanted to, and a pull request that goes with it. So looking what's going on over here, seems that approval was done, merge was done. You see that now some deployment is in progress. GitHub action deployment environment, you see that? So I could click on here to see that we are currently deploying in PlanetScale. You can also see that there is a status check, ps merge. So you could have a branch protection rule that only allows you to merge the code change if the ps merge was going through successfully, which it was now. So now the schema change was merged successfully. Here you see the schema changes applied, and now I can also go ahead and merge the corresponding code change, which means that on the top page, we are now linking to our issue template, where you can add your own example, how you make use of those pscale helper scripts with a framework of your choice, tweet about it, and win some swag. And that is concluding our demo. As said, we will share the slides. That's the issue template, which you will also find in the main page. And we are very much looking forward to your questions and feedback.
Where's this database running you created?
Good question. So the database running actually depends on the specific branch. Every branch could run in a different region, right? By default, we are our hosted offering, our SaaS offering is running on AWS, and we have all the AWS regions, or most of them, available. It's also possible that you give us your own AWS or other cloud account, and like GCP, and we provision the entire stack, including all the powerful features over there. So, but yeah, it's in the region of your choice. You can decide by branch. Data is fully encrypted, SOC 2 compliant. Cross
region?
Pardon?
Multiple regions. Can I have one instance, if you will, go through your proxy and go to multiple regions?
So every branch is hosted in a specific region.
Okay.
Right.
Is there cross-region communication between each instance? Region.
So there's no communication between the different branches until you merge the schema changes. However, every branch in that region has replicas in 3 different availability zones, and we do automated failover if that was needed.
Can I use all available AZs in each region? Like Northern Virginia's got 6 and Oregon's got 4. Can I do that, or am I limited to 3?
So if you're using the SaaS version of it, it's 3 availability zones by default. If you are an enterprise customer, we can accommodate your needs with more availability zones. And if you are going for a managed setup, then anything basically AWS or GCP provides is a possibility.
Okay. One last thing for me, the authentication bit. Can that integrate with HashiCorp Vault or Secrets Manager to go grab the credentials needed to do the work?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a GitHub action to get stuff out of vaults, right? And then you would basically store the you would basically store a connection token in it. So you could create a password and store this then in the vault and use that instead of the web-based authentication.
Okay. Right. Thanks.
Any other questions?
So all the reads are always limited to a single region?
Well, reads are directed to a specific branch. You can have multiple production branches. We also support sharding, meaning it will go to multiple pods or multiple key spaces in the backend. If you are an enterprise customer, we have seen requests and are also working accommodate those where you can have read-based replicas in different regions. That's not something our developer plan or scaler plan would offer, but yeah, if you're sufficiently large, that's something we definitely accommodate.
Cool.
More questions? By the way, this is an open-ended happy half hour, so we're happy to stay longer to answer your questions. But we will share the recording with you. You have my email and the invite, so feel free to follow up there if you want to. And also you can find us on Twitter and contact us there for sure. Okay, everyone's silent. In that case, I would say I thank you very much for joining us. This was super, super nice. Thanks for taking the time to listen. We would love to hear your
send out the survey?
I will send out a survey as a follow-up in an email that you have signed up with. So we would love to hear your feedback as this was our first happy half hour. So thanks for bearing with us. We were quite a bit nervous before this. Yeah, we hope to see you very soon again. And don't forget to run through the demo and ping us when you've done so that we can send you all the swag.
Yes, it will be worth it, I swear. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day, evening, wherever you are, and talk soon. Thank you.
Bye.